Have you ever wondered where the young get all their energy? It is a question we often ask, but rarely accurately answer. Energy comes from the food we eat. First, our bodies use the sugars that we've eaten. When the sugars are used up, our bodies switch to using stored fats for energy. The enzyme that switches our bodies from using sugar to using stored fat has the unpronounceable name, carnitine palmitoyl transferase, or CPT1 for short. The job of this enzyme is to help change certain fats in the food we eat into energy we need to work and play and live healthy lives. But for a number of children in Alaska, this crucial enzyme is not working as expected. These children have lower levels of the CPT1 enzyme, formerly known as CPT1 deficiency and now called Arctic variant CPT1A. The name was recently changed to Arctic variant CPT1A to reflect that having low levels of CPT1 is not a disease, but a manageable condition that is common among many children in Alaska. In some children, having lower levels of CPT1 can lead to serious illness and seizures. This is the story of how physicians, healthcare professionals, and parents are finding the condition early and are helping babies and children with Arctic variant CPT1A live healthy lives. Arctic variant CPT1A is found mostly among people who live in the far north subpolar regions of the globe, in Alaska, northern Canada, and Greenland. Why the condition is mostly in the far north is largely a mystery. Why it is so common among Alaska Native people, especially in rural villages, is also still a mystery. One of the theories is that in the old days, when people in the Arctic had a more traditional diet, having lower levels of CPT1 allowed people to be healthier than people who had higher levels. This theory would explain why so many Alaska Native people have low levels of CPT1. It's also important to remember that Arctic variant CPT1A is not a disease. A baby or young child who has been diagnosed with Arctic variant CPT1A is perfectly healthy, and in time, as the child grows older, the risk of having any problems will decrease. But until that time comes, there are some very important things parents should know, which is what this story is all about. Even though doctors don't know why so many Alaska Native people have low levels of CPT1, much is known about the condition itself, how to detect it, and how to support and treat babies and children who have this very common gene. Arctic variant CPT1A is not a disease, but a treatable condition. However, it can cause children to get very sick if they aren't able to drink breast milk, formula, or other glucose-containing fluids regularly.
Under pressure.
His name is Dr. David Kohler. He's a gene specialist at the Oregon Health and Science University and an expert on Arctic variant CPT1A. Today he is at a conference in Anchorage talking with community health aides and practitioners who are responsible for the care of these children and the education of their parents.
So everyone's heard of CPT1. Let me stop. How many people have heard of CPT1 deficiency in Alaska? Okay. I never get that anywhere else other than Alaska. I'm amazed when I go, and I was in Nome last week, and all these people came to hear about CPT1 deficiency. It's testimony to the people up here who've done such a great job of educating people.
The Anchorage workshop brought together Dr. Kohler, the scientist who studies the disorder, Dr. Matt Hirschfeld of the Alaska Native Medical Center, a children's doctor who works with the families at the hospital and in the villages, and Talia Wood, formerly with the state of Alaska, who helps to educate families about Arctic variant CPT1A. Together they are getting information about this newly recognized diagnosis out in the rural villages where the problem is most common. What they are basically telling parents is that in Alaska, every baby is tested for Arctic variant CPT1A as a part of a newborn blood spot screening test. Screenings have shown that a milder form of Arctic variant CPT1A is common in babies of Alaska Native people. Most of these babies can make enough of the CPT enzyme to maintain good health. However, if a baby with even a mild form of Arctic variant CPT1A goes without eating for between 6 to 8 hours, the child can get sick very quickly. This is especially true for a newborn baby who sleeps much of the time and could easily miss a feeding. Dr. Kohler and Dr. Hirschfeld share some of the frequently asked questions from their experiences with parents in rural villages. How do you explain Arctic variant CPT1A to parents?
What I tell the families is that the disorder affects the ability of their child to burn fats for energy. Normally we don't burn fats, we use blood glucose or our blood sugar for energy. But if we skip meals or fasting, then we start having to burn fat for energy. And it's those times when they don't have any food coming in and they run out of energy that they can get symptoms.
What are the symptoms of a baby who's getting sick when they have Arctic variant CPT1A?
So kids who have this have the same symptoms as other kids. They have the same colds, they get the same infections. The difference is they often get a little bit sicker. And so if they can't keep fluids down, if they have fevers, if they have vomiting, if they have diarrhea, those are all reasons they need to be seen by a provider relatively quickly because they can drop the glucose in their blood.
Does Arctic variant CPT1A cause brain damage or learning problems in kids when they're older?
It doesn't have any direct effect on the brain. And as long as the parents understand what the treatment is and the kids get taken care of when they get ill, there's no reason to expect there should be any sort of brain damage or learning problems. On the other hand, if kids do have a lot of illnesses and they don't get medical care, it's possible that they could have seizures and other problems with learning in the future.
What do you do if one of your kids gets sick in the village?
The first thing you have to worry about with a kid in the village is that you get some glucose fluids into them, whether that be breast milk, whether it be formula, whether it be Pedialyte. Those are all good. If they can't keep them down, then you have to get them to a place where they can get an IV. Sometimes that's a village clinic, sometimes that's a regional hospital, but that's the way you're going to have to get glucose fluids into them if they can't keep fluids down.
Dr. Hirschfeld often visits patients and their families in remote rural villages like Teller on the northwest coast of Alaska. At the village clinic, he talks with Denise and her infant Alonza. A recent screening showed the child had Arctic variant CPT1A.
So thanks for bringing Alonza into the clinic today. I wanted to see you in the clinic mainly because I wanted to talk about something that we picked up on her newborn metabolic screen, which is that she has CPT1 deficiency, which is sort of a new diagnosis that we're picking up in a lot of kids from the coastal regions in Alaska. And what that is when babies go long periods without eating, or adults or older kids, they need to use fat for their energy. And this protein in your cells, what it does is it allows you to use fats for energy. And so in Alonza and lots of other kids in Alaska, this protein doesn't work quite right. It only works about 10% as well as it does in other kids. And so when babies like Alonza, if they have a cold or a fever or vomiting or diarrhea, and they're not able to eat for long periods of time, then what happens is they can't use fats for energy, and they can get kind of sleepy and hard to wake up, and it can even progress to the point where they can start having seizures because they're not able to use these fats for energy. So that's the main reason I brought you here. Do you have any questions?
What are her health risks?
The health risks are if she can't eat for somewhere between 6 to 8 hours because she's not feeling well, because she's got a fever, she's got a cold, she may become very sleepy. And if she becomes very sleepy, obviously she's not going to be able to eat very well. And so you just have to remember that if that happens, if she's not able to eat for that amount of time, then you'll have to bring her into the clinic to have her checked out and make sure that she's doing okay. And what they can do is they can look at her, and if they have trouble waking her up because she's so sleepy, they may have to put an IV in, or you may have to go to Nome for more medical care.
Will she grow out of it?
As she gets older, what will happen is she'll have more sugar stored in her liver and more sugar in her blood. And so she's going to be able to have longer periods of time between eating where she won't have any problems. So she'll never actually outgrow CPT1 deficiency, but as she gets older, she'll have much longer periods of time between eating where she won't have any problems.
Another of Dr. Hirschfeld's patients lives in Nome, high on the shores of the Bering Sea. It is here the legendary Iditarod Trail sled dog race ends. The first Iditarod race in 1925 was organized to deliver medicine to Nome when blizzard conditions made delivery by airplane impossible. Now Dr. Hirschfeld visits with Deidre Minnick and her daughter Chelsea. Chelsea has been diagnosed with Arctic variant CPT1A.
How did you first find out that she had CPT1 deficiency?
She was sleeping and that wasn't like her, so I had called my mother and she said that maybe she's just growing, and it came around maybe 4 o'clock that I knew that something was wrong with her, and I had woken her up and we had brought her up to the hospital, and they said the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I told them that it's not like her to be sleeping all day long. And I told them that I wasn't going to leave until I found out that something was actually wrong with her. Mm-hmm. And they did blood work, they did urine, and a couple days later they called me and told me to bring her back up. And that's when they told me what it was.
When she was a baby, how often did you feed her?
When she was a baby, she'd eat every couple hours, just like a regular baby. And
does she have a snack before she goes to bed?
Yes, okay. And if we do forget about it, she will remind me that she's hungry or she says, I want something.
Okay.
And to us, she wants something to eat.
Okay. Is she able to keep up with all the other kids at school, and does she have the same energy as all the rest of the kids?
She does, and
Great.
Sometimes more.
Okay. That's a good thing.
Yes.
And she's learning in school?
She's doing excellent in school. She's just started all of her letters and her name, and she's known colors and the alphabet and stuff too, so she's doing good. She can't wait till it snows out to play out in the snow.
So you can't tell a difference between her and any of the rest of the kids?
Nope,
that she hangs out with?
not at all.
That's perfect. So the only thing you do is when she gets a cold or she has vomiting or diarrhea, then you just take her in a little bit quicker than you would with the other
any
dogs.
other of my kids, yeah.
Okay, you take them in to see their doctor. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you test your older daughter for stage blood stuff, and she was fine?
Yes.
A baby with low CPT1 levels has inherited 2 CPT genes, one from the mother and one from the father. It is possible that the parents do not pass the gene that causes low CPT1 levels to their other children, but these children should be checked at the clinic. An important thing to remember is that having low levels of CPT1 is not a disease. A baby or young child who has been diagnosed with Arctic variant CPT1A is perfectly healthy, and in time, as the child grows older, the risk of getting symptoms will decrease. But until that time comes, there are some very important things parents should know and should do. The key is to avoid going for a long time without food. Every baby needs to eat often, even if it means waking the baby frequently throughout the night. Second, parents should know the warning signs, know how to recognize a potential crisis, fever, diarrhea, or vomiting leading to extreme sleepiness and refusing food. Immediately take the child to the community health aide. It might be nothing serious, but it might be something where an IV is required, especially when your child hasn't been able to eat. Also, if your child needs surgery for any reason, be sure to tell the doctor that your child has Arctic variant CPT1A and should not go without glucose for more than a few hours. Finally, parents should know that having low levels of CPT1 is very common among Alaska Natives and other societies in the far north. And you and your family are certainly not alone. In review, here is a reminder of when you should call your child's healthcare provider. If any of these conditions exist, it is very important to get medical advice or assistance. When there is fever, when the child is unable to eat for 6 to 8 hours for any reason, when there is vomiting or diarrhea severe enough that the child cannot keep anything down for 6 to 8 hours, when the child is lethargic and you can't wake the child up, when the child has seizures. If your child requires surgery for whatever reason, be sure to let your healthcare provider know that your child has Arctic variant CPT1A and shouldn't go without some kind of glucose for more than 6 to 8 hours. And so, now you know where all that energy comes from. It is a resource of immense value, a resource that will power their young lives and ours into the future, a future in which we can say, energy crisis resolved.